ready to start before the start time. So the people we're waiting for, we will just, they can just come in and join us. So this is a very, very important session for us today. Because in the last 2 years we haven't had discussions about the integration of our TIPS modules and our not newly developed but revised philosophy on teaching, learning and research. So that's quite important that we all understand it from a facilitation point of view, assessment point of view, supervisory point of view. So the links are so important for us. Very important discussion. We are recording it today so that we can put it on Moodle and the facilitators who can make it that they can also view it and understand what we're doing. So I've asked Benny to do the session on the research, the teaching and learning philosophy. And then after that, Roy will take over and explain to us how the TIPS modules integrate with everything we do and why it's such an important element of whatever we do in the intervention. So please, I think we can ask questions while we talk, or how would you prefer to do it?
Well, it's a matter of energy. If there's energy, there will be a discussion. If there's not, then there will be a lecture.
Okay, so you will show us whether you've got energy or not. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think it's whether I've got the energy, it's whether we've got the energy. So I want to start off right at the beginning and say, before we even get to talk about the philosophy and the meta context, I'm going to share what I believe all of you should know, but which I'm aware all of you do not necessarily know. And that's probably because of the lack on our side to engage with this. But maybe before I continue, I want to say welcome to two colleagues. The one is Franz Ignacevic. He came from Germany, and he's one of our lecturers and assists us with the international immersions on international collaboration. And we're also working on a module to be included in our masters and hopefully build on that in future. But thanks for visiting us, Franz, for making the time, because he's doing other business also in South Africa, but we're glad that you could make the time with us. And I also want to say welcome. Somewhere, I think, on this camera thing is Quentin in Cape Town. Quentin, welcome. I hope you enjoy the day. And at least we've got sun. I don't know how it is down in Cape Town, but thanks for making the time. And to all of you, welcome. So I want to start right in the beginning and say, rightfully so, Da Vinci as a university of work starts around a work-based challenge. So anybody who sits in front of us, by the time they get to you, would have started working on defining their work-based challenge. So when I get into a class, whether I'm the third module or the 10th one or I'm in research, doesn't matter. The assumption must be you're sitting with 20 people, if there are 20, who have the responsibility to work on a work-based challenge. They are busy solving a problem. A real problem. They're coming to your facilitation to gather information and get energy which they can incorporate with what they've got until now and then to go back to the workplace. That's why they're there. So they're not there because they just like your module. They're there because they want to take something to the work-based challenge. Now before that happens, I almost want to draw a picture here and say, as you sit here today, each of you represent a module of some kind. Rose does some work on business analysis, Francie does something on international collaboration, Wesley will do something on health and safety, and I can continue. Marty will do something on research. So as a facilitator at Da Vinci, you represent one of these blocks. But my question is almost, do you know where that fits in? Can you connect the dots from here, where you sit, to the rest of the learning journey at Da Vinci? And that's what we try to give you an update on and just to share with you again today. So long before Thabo sits in your class to learn about international relationships, he has been exposed to certain other things. He's been challenged to provide a work-based challenge. To make that work, he has provided us on his file with 5 names of people whom he or she will collaborate in the journey while being with Da Vinci. Those 5 people we've got contact details of. By the time he concludes his journey, we're going to send the ROI, the return on investment report, which he wrote as an assignment. We're going to send it to those 5 people to get comment. To what extent do you think that TAB will solve the workplace challenge effectively? Now that all happens around you. You're not aware of it, but that's what's happening around you. The third piece that happens at this point is that we also ask them, what is the strategic driver or influence in that Thabo life? So Thabo produces a document, a written piece to the key account manager in saying, my driver in life is the Quran, because I choose that. Or my driver in life is a poem which my grandfather wrote about women's rights. Or my driver in life is the Freedom Charter, if I'm a South African. I don't care what it is. Somebody posted the Charter for Humanities and Social Sciences as a strategic driver. So before they come to you, they have published, presented, what is their strategic driver in life. Now why do I want to share that with you? Because I want you to assess this student, Thabo, in how he is contributing to his workplace challenge from that perspective, not from your perspective. So if a student indicates on his file, which you should have access to, that he is a staunch believer of Marxism as presented in Das Kapital from Marx, and he writes an assignment on economic freedom and talks very, elaborately on the importance of capitalism and how he believes that his company is doing the right thing by doing this and this and the other. I expect you as the economic facilitator to critique that assignment against that backdrop, which he indicated is socialism. So why do we do this, you may ask? Because we stated very clear, when Roy and I go out there and we talk to people about Da Vinci, we say one of the major things is we want to work with people to co-create reality. We ask them, but we don't do anything about it. Now, in a Mode 1 university, you're not interested in this, because you're the specialist and you teach me and you tell me. Well, we don't want to do that. You're facilitating your expertise within a broader context. And that's a very important link. Your key account should make you aware constantly, this is your 20 students for today, here's the access to the folders online, and there's the piece on this student's strategic drive. I don't care if they change it. Maybe 3 months into the program, the students would say, well, I'm not into communism anymore. I'm now into something totally different. That's fine. But I want you to speak to that all the time. So, how do we help them? That's the one angle we use to inform a work-based challenge. The second one that we do fairly early in the program is we expose them to systems thinking. So we try to open their view and say, let's look at the world as a bigger and a more complex reality. We also take them through a reframing process. And by reframing, we mean we'll focus on who they are as self, who are the people around them, and what is the social context within which they operate. You are facilitating, and so am I, within a developing economic reality. I wonder if we realize that. Johan? Do we really make those linkages? So you present something on project management. So you bring a developed world instrument to a developing reality. Do you accentuate that?
Well, yeah.
That's not necessarily, that's a good answer, but that's not necessarily what.
It's
Martin?
politically correct.
Politically correct. Martin?
And the teachers will come with their own reality.
Yes.
They
Different realities. So it's almost, we almost today want to, in a sense, make you more aware of your own levels of consciousness. How aware are we about who is around us? And where are they and where are we? And it's not about where should we be for now. Just where are we and where are they? So Francis cannot other than come from a developed world. And as much as he loves Africa, and tries to talk in a developing context, what are the discussions, Kenneth, do you think that he and I have about South Africa around being focused and goal-orientated and sticking to the rules? Is Africa good in that? No. And it frustrates Francis. He loves Africa, but it frustrates him. And it must frustrate him because he comes from a different reality. He comes from Germany, where everything works like a tick box or click, 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 and we're not there. So when he facilitates international relations, I will expect Francis to be aware that it looks different from where we sit. Now, as we develop a global footprint, for example, in our PhD programs with Ronnie Lessem and Alexander, that's problematic for me. Because in your point, they say there are much more realities than just developing and developed. There are also intermediate realities. And I think Da Vinci can do everybody a favor and ourselves if we allow ourselves to be more aware of that reality. So once we've got these three realities, then often the work-based challenge emerges. Yes?
Just a question. So, am I understanding correctly? If the student does not necessarily have a work-based challenge, but is on the program because
somebody sent you.
And needs to create that, first of all, how do you actually get to the root of the work-based challenge or create that within? And secondly, can you use that reframing yourself and others in society to actually enforce it going forward? That is actually how you create a work-based challenge.
I think it's a very important question. In the beginning years, because also of resource realities, we spoke about this, but we didn't do it. There are students who graduated at Da Vinci in the early years who can't talk to this. I'm talking about the undergrad students. The postgraduates had to get there. But now we've incorporated in our learning, you would see in our bachelor's degree, there's actually a research component where there's a designated individual assisting them in working this out. But when we do these modules, these are two modules, this is another module. So when they've done these three modules, they usually have enough pointers to start thinking, what can be a work-based challenge for me? Because it's not necessarily something that's a problem. My problem may be at work that there's not a risk policy and I'm the risk manager. That's a problem. But the challenge may be, how do I position risk in a corporate environment? That's not a problem. It's a challenge. So I don't want them to get into a problem that's small and it's a project. It must be something that's a broader interest. Because remember, all our qualification purposes are overridden by the notion that we're working in the managerial leadership domain. We're developing managerial leaders. Doesn't matter where you come from. Junior, middle, senior level. Whatever you do, it's all about the management of. So it's how do you manage that work-based challenge? Rose?
I think maybe you just said what I want to say. Because in general, the work-based challenge is, like you said, it's not necessarily a challenge, it's an opportunity. If you are bringing in, let's say, those guys who are coming straight from the trip. So basically the reason why they are coming for a degree is that they want to get a good job. So what you're saying, that's a challenge to me. How do you get a job? So if you want to get a good job, it means you prepare yourself for that job. And if you just look at that reframing, then you have to say, like, if I want this good job, who am I?
Yeah.
Right. You want to be a doctor, but you are a very good abuser of people, then you can't be a medical doctor. So it means maybe you go to the army. And you see that even though you are a good abuser in the army, that's where we need people who are so caring.
I think that's a very valuable comment because,
so the issue of saying, though I'm not working, but it's like you need to identify yourself in the bigger framework.
And what we want to do with the BCom for unemployed ones, because that number is also increasing, we're getting more and more youngsters, And I assume in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to get large numbers of 18-year-olds. The work-based challenge, what we hope to do is to incorporate a simulation. Because we want 18-year-olds who want to run their own businesses. I'm not really interested in the young kid who's got a dream of being the CEO of a big corporate. We want to work with people who want to run their own business or create them. Right?
I think it's vitally important that you spend a couple of minutes on managerial leadership, because everybody has to go out there and know that this is a key differentiator. And I think that's important that we all have absolute clarification about what we're talking about.
Thanks for that one, Roy, and I think it's important. So our focus is on a managerial leadership, and I'll tell you why it's so key. At the back end, we are registered with a regulator. And when you register with a regulator, you have to define your purpose and your focus. And when we go through audits, everything they do, they assess you against that backdrop. So, I can't afford that anybody tells the world out there that they're doing a health and safety program at Da Vinci. To take an example, for example. What I can afford is that they will tell the world, I am doing a managerial leadership program at Da Vinci focusing on health and safety. So I just want to give you that first line. Everything is looked to that, because that's our reason for being. If we don't have that, then we will not be allowed to do customized programs for cinematology, for aviation, for health and safety, and the likes. So that's the first thing. But secondly, in the literature, management is often defined as a transactional engagement. There are rules, you follow the rules, you tick the box, you've managed it. The word in the origins means like a machine. So management comes from the word machine. You put all the pieces together and tick, 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 you manage it. On the other hand, leadership talks to a transformational engagement. It involves a human interface. It doesn't focus on what is right and what is wrong. It focuses on how do you create something that's of value to both. So we want deliberately to combine these two and say a Da Vinci alumnus will be a true managerial leader. It will be a mix of something. Not one or the other, but both. And it talks to the systemic idea of both and, not either or. It's all inclusive. There's not an end. You bring all the energies together. And if in future there are more dimensions that comes up, we will probably redefine that. But I think, Roy, that's the idea. That it's encompassing, it looks at transactional, transformational, because it looks at an evolving piece. It's never ending. And that we want people to be involved. When we work with, and you will see them, and you see them in your class, you get 80% of your students are management focused. Just give me a toolbox. Just give me the tick box. Just tell me what must I do. And then they'll manage it. But we mustn't get trapped there. So hopefully this overarching perspective will constantly draw all of us to a view, how do I embrace the both ands? What I think is truth and what could be other truths. But keep it open.
Can I just ask, I think one of the important outcomes for today is we need to go and send this, or share the same message in all the modules with the students. We can't have different messages. So what will be your advice on how do we make that link at the start of the session with any module?
Well, I think it's a reflective conversation. It's an inductive reflection conversation saying, well, ladies and gentlemen, you're registered, you're on a journey to become a managerial leader. Where are you in your journey of management leadership? And even ask a few of them and say, Linda, what are you doing? Sue, where are you? So just make them aware. It's just about creating the awareness. Because we don't have I'm not interested in giving them a very definite definition. But just raise the awareness. So that the discussion in their head continues, oh, I'm actually busy with the managerial leadership program. And it will become unbearable at work once they cotton on to that. Because they will put the pressure, and that's what we want. We make it clear that we're in a university space because we want to create agents for change and transformation. But if they don't speak the language because we don't speak the language, well, then it won't happen. Then we can just become a sub-campus of one of the closest universities. Okay, so once this is happening, there emerges a work-based challenge. And they work on it initially. Some of them really struggle. But they can, because this is a constant, I mean, they're working on this continuously. Why do we want to do that? Because we ultimately want to help them that they develop their own decision-making framework. Now this piece, I'm not sure, Roy, we're doing enough. But that piece is key for me. Because even today, and it may not sound appropriate, if I would have asked you verbally, if I give you a scenario and ask you, tell me how you're going to make a decision on actioning this, the possibility that 80% of you are going to do it the same, more or less the same, is most probable. When we do it with the students, it almost proves it every time. So here we sit, individuals, so-called individuals, with our own DNA and our own blueprint. But when we make a decision, we all do it the same. Now you could argue when you get to the robot, there's one decision, and that is stop at the red light. Well, I'm not sure that's the only decision you can take. I did that when I came to Joburg 14 years ago, and I had 3 car bumps from the back because I stopped when the light turned orange. Because somebody said to me, orange, slow down, stop. But I didn't look in my rearview mirror that there were cars coming. So, I mean, I made the decision. Was it wrong? No, it wasn't. Was it appropriate? Totally inappropriate. Now, I almost think we've got a similar way as we operate in life. And I want to believe there isn't just one way of making a decision. But you should get a way of making those decisions that are true to you. So you want this because you want them to solve this problem within the context of these 3 things, at least. Now we come closer to where your space is. So then we say, okay, there are 3 lenses with which we want to filter what you will be doing in making that decision, in solving that problem. And the one is the management of innovation, the management of technology, and the management of people. And only then, Johan, are we getting to your module on project management. Only then. Now for Marty, who's involved in the research, we sometimes put her research module for what we do for the Masters and PhD students. We put that straight after of this bubble. We make that the first bubble. So these things can move a bit. This is movable. But what I want you to know, where does all of this, the people who sit here today, where does it fit in? It fits into this frame. And we need you to enforce these concepts. Because you now, we almost hand the baton over to you at this point and say you're going to help them in that because you're also going to facilitate and help them create a value-added solution to that work-based challenge with what you are inputting here. And you're also going to assist them so that they are able to write an SRI's Social Return on Investment report at the end of their studies. And this takes the format of a 10-credit piece of work. As I said, this piece of work then gets forwarded also to those 5 people who they indicated will be joining them on their journey. So we haven't even spoken, Jean, about what you want me to talk, but I thought this is important that I want to share with you and ask, do you know this? Does this make sense? Do you want to comment on it, critique it? Yes?
Can I just ask, by the time the learners in your classroom, have they been through those 3 modules?
Yes, all of them. Everything starts here and here. Well, with these 3 things. This is where it starts.
Really, can I just say, I think what Maggie is asking is such an important one. And this is currently a challenge that we're sitting with our students. They get this, but because we don't make that link every time in the classroom, but they tend to forget it and it doesn't make sense. Yeah, so they get almost pockets of moments and then we don't follow through, so it's important.
Lynn?
Well, I've now facilitated work-based challenge now for a couple of times, and I think that there's some paradigm shifting that needs to be done to look at how it works from first to second to third year, how to take the students along, and actually that maybe there's some going back and looking at the groundwork, because I think that's very, very important. In some of the students, they wrote some really good work-based challenge, you know, the PMAs that they did. And then there were students who had no clue of what it means. And of course, the students who were not in the class, they were lost. They're totally lost. If they don't come to class, they don't understand it, because in the way that I facilitated it was really with getting them to understand it with pictures and boxes and things like that. And then they understood it.
And I think, Lynn, you're faced with a symptom that comes from a society that says don't take ownership, don't be accountable, just go with the flow. So when you now ask a student to define a work-based challenge which is their burning platform, it's almost, you can't ask me that. Who am I to have a burning platform? What do you mean with that? I'm just having a job. So it is a definite challenge. And I think once we expand our student support services, as we've discussed, we will hope that that could inform people in that work-based challenge. So that will also help them to be more reflective and say, let's talk to you about this, what does it mean, etc. We're very aware of the limitations currently, that we've got fairly limited resources in working on the work-based challenge. Yet at the same time, I want to say, I don't want the focus to become the resources. The focus is this resource, me, the student. And we must facilitate until this thing opens up. So I don't want to carry this thing too much, because then we're babysitting it as society is doing. This thing must come alive. Francie?
A question, because on the work-based challenge, we work together with a group, and when I had to look at the assignments, sometimes I had the clear feeling what you just said. It's just a job that I'm doing. Why must I, engage into such depth with it? But how do I, as a facilitator or a coach, or whatever you want to call it, basically create a desire within the student to do a better job, to open up him or herself to all what you have mentioned, to be interested, and not just to give me, an average answer that he has an answer to my question, but create the fire.
I think I don't have a clear answer, but let me try this. If we connect all the dots, if these were the lectures that will lecture or facilitate in the MSc group number 12, these are all the pieces, all the blocks. And when Roy starts with them, and they do their systems thinking assignment, and because remember, all the assignments has got has got a requirement that they must apply it in the work. So every assignment is based on this thing. Now, if the first facilitator marks Johnny's assignment and sees, well, the challenge is not clearly defined, the application is very vague, and it's not well positioned, that commentary should be available to the next lecturer. Well, not should, it is available. To the next, that's why the commentary is so important for us. So now, let's say Sue is the next facilitator. Sue must now prepare to work with John. And one thing that she should do, she should see what has the previous facilitator wrote about John. So now she sees, of my 20 students, there are 11 who got notes of not being well articulated. The theme is you don't know what you're doing. Well, what will you do soon? So there are 20 students. Roy had them first. 11 of them, the notes, the thinking when you went through the comments of your previous facilitator was 11, not on the ball. This is not working. What are you going to do as the next facilitator? You've got them now for 2 days on this matter. Maggie?
I'm just, because I'm not very familiar with the Vinci and how, what the process is.
Doesn't matter.
But surely before this learner gets to sue, there should have been some kind of feedback, not just written feedback, but verbal, face-to-face, on what you found lacking before they move on to the next.
But let's say at least there's written feedback. Roy is busy, he didn't have time to talk. Maybe he wrote an email, but remember that feedback comment goes to the student. So you're the next one, you've received that. The student has received it, and you've received it. What are you doing now as the next lecturer? As a facilitator?
I think face-to-face. You need to chat to them about it. Ask them what they think of the feedback.
Okay. That will be great, but I'm just realistic. You know, we don't have that committed people, you know. People remind me that I only pay them for 2 days. So what I would say is, what you could consider, do you want to suggest,
I think
right?
the issue is to say, is to look at the gaps, right? And say, right, you see, when you're talking about systems thinking, this is what we're saying, a system is made up of different components that work together, right? So what you're missing from this, then you look at those components, like you say HR, or you say finance, or you say production, or you say this area. So you look at the student and say, right, we are not working in a vacuum, or you're not working alone. So what we want from you is the situation where you identify how HR will help you in a situation, like maybe skills are lacking. That's why, you see, you are not looking at the strategic component, because you did identify the skills that will make the strategy go forward.
So you'll make them aware that systemically it's not inclined, but practically I would say the one option is, there may be many, that you as the facilitator, you may be having the energy, and maybe you would say, guys, I want to see you, I'm facilitating in 2 weeks' time. I want to see the following people a half an hour before class. And you would say, look, I'm receiving you today, but the feedback update until now is that the 11 of you are struggling with your work-based challenge. You will also advise the Dean's office and your CAM that they must bring in the student support, because here's a challenge. So you can't do all of that, but we must bring in somebody to help them and say, okay, you're struggling, let's do some more reflection on this. So it's rather a matter, Francie, how do you facilitate and keep that link? And even if there are people who are not on the spot or not focused, what you could do to make the system aware that there is a broken line. And maybe then the third lecturer may come in and say, well, I see there are still some comments that it seemed to me that a small group are not focused on their work-based challenge yet. And the same thing can evolve. So it's about keeping the dots connected with your key account, because as a lecturer you are contracted by a key account. And say to your key account, well, where's my comments from my previous colleague? Whom of you have asked that before? Dan, but have you asked for that?
No, I don't think yes.
Because that's what I want. You must ask for it and say, key account, where's my comments? Not on the day when they're here, 2 weeks in advance, because you're preparing. And then you see the comments, and whatever you see as the comments, you must have the opportunity to, in your own right, say to the key account, you know what, I see a burning platform here, I see a problem here. And the key account must solve that for you. You mustn't be worrying and lying around at night about it. We must here at the back office say, how are we going to solve that? And I think if we repeat that with every one of us, damn, Francie, by the time they get here, I mean, if they don't get in then I really want to say they lost this. But I think it's a function of what we can do. Dan, is that right?